honored this morning to present
might continue and multiply for these young children of which are educating themselves to take the place of those who moves out for. And when you have no other things for us to do in this world and we stand on the bank of the chilly stream of death, we ask you, the Lord, bear poor soul over to the banks of sweet deliverance, where the flowers bloom for those who love and serve you, for we can praise you throughout ceaseless ages. We ask these blessings in the name of thy darling Son, who gave his life for us. Amen.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our commemoration of Veterans Day today. Today we'll have, as our speaker, and I'll introduce him and say a few more things about him later, Lieutenant Colonel Joe Warren from the Kentucky Adjutant General's Office. I don't know if Commander Vanderpool is here yet. He's not here. We hope he'll show up, Commander of the 5th District of the Veterans of Foreign Wars. We have Wiley Willis here, Commander of the Disabled American Veterans. Many of us are members of both organizations, of the VFW and the VAB. And one little thing I want to tell you about, it's been customary in the past, and we expect to do this today at precisely 11 o'clock. We'll stop everything where we are and have a moment of silence in memory of those who gave their lives for this nation and all the wars in which we have fought. At this time, I'll turn the program over to Ms. Campbell for our Voice of Democracy speakers.
Welcome to this portion of our student program. This year the subject is Meeting America's Challenge. The students who have participated in the speech writing and giving have mentioned many of the challenges that America faces this year. Among the ones that were mentioned most often was the challenge of world peace, homelessness, poverty, disease, and education. These all loom large in our everyday life, and we and the youth around us must meet these challenges. The three winging speeches and speakers for today reflect the determination of many of our youth. Between each of our speeches, we will have a selection by Mr. Ohm in the bank. Our third place winner in this year's contest with the subject Meeting America's Challenge is Paul Wilson. Paul has been an active member at FFA for the 4 years he has been in high school, holding various offices. He is also a member of the Friends Club. He's from the Round Hill community and he lives with his parents, Terrell and Mary Jo Wilson. Our third place winner, Paul Wilson.
Meeting America's Challenge. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I've been asked to speak today on what I think America's biggest challenge is, and whether or not America can meet this challenge. I believe America's biggest problems doesn't lie just in one group or person. I believe America's biggest problem lies in America's backbone, you and me. Why, today in America, do people say hello when passing on the street, in an elevator, or at a bus stop? Why do people put money above their families, health, and the needs of others? And why don't people care about anything unless it affects them right now in the present? Today, people in America are more strangers than the numerous immigrants that pour into this country each year. Why can't we communicate in such a way that we can work problems out as friends instead of in court? Why in America, in order to get ahead, you must be sly, uncaring, and crooked? I believe that people would just be friendlier, more caring, and wouldn't put themselves first. America would solve a lot of its problems. Maybe if people will get more involved in religious and social groups who try to help others, America will prosper. I recall a speech by David Page, Kentucky State FFA Vice President, 1989-1990. In his speech, he told a story about how one day a man was walking down the road in the fall with his jacket on. The wind saw this, and the wind made a bet with the sun that he could get the coat off of the man. The sun accepted. The wind then proceeded to blow. Leaves were whirling and the trees were swaying, but the man just pulled his coat around him. The wind blew harder, but the man just pulled his jacket tighter. The wind blew as hard as it could, but still failed. Now it was the sun's turn. The sun had been watching from behind the cloud. The sun then popped out from behind the cloud and shone brightly down on the man. The man began to sweat. The man, being hot, took off his jacket. This story gives us a moral that we should all take seriously. The moral is that you can get more out of people by being kind and warm instead of cold and harsh. America has overcome great challenges in the past. Our forefathers made a great challenge in the Revolutionary War. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and Alexander Hamilton overcame the problem of the need of a new government. Susan B. Anthony and Martin Luther King met the challenge of civil rights. America has put a man on the moon. Also, Roosevelt helped America through the Great Depression. America's troops have fought hard in both world wars, Korea, Vietnam, and just recently, Desert Storm. Since America has always held its head high and faced any challenge, I have no doubt that we can meet any challenge before us. But meeting the challenge of caring, of being an old-fashioned American is not enough. We must take on new characteristics and set the challenge and carry our national pride high for the world to see. We are Americans. I know America is the greatest nation in the world, and if any nation is to succeed, I am truly confident that America will. Thank you.
Our second place winner in the Voice of Democracy contest is Makisha Houchin. She is the daughter of Tony and Pat Houchin of the Cleveland community. Makisha is captain of the academic team, field commander for the Edmonson County Band in Blue, president of the New Alpha Theta, the new math club, and a national merit semifinalist. She also has participated in this writing and speaking contest before, winning first place her sophomore year. Our second place winner is Makisha Houchin. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On January 20th, 1961, President John F. Kennedy spoke his office for the world. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. That day, President Kennedy lit a torch that challenges us, a torch that my generation should carry into the future. This challenge to the young people of America is to support and improve our country. Before this challenge can be met, we must be capable of meeting it, and at this moment, we are not prepared to face this challenge. Before we can do anything for our country must first do something for us. We must improve our education system so that we may fulfill to the full potential the American dream. I believe improving education is America's greatest challenge. One problem in our education system is the amount of time that we spend in school. According to a recent article in the Atlantic Monthly, the schools in the United States average 180 days teaching, while there are 24 countries in the world that require a minimum of days greater than the most days we ever spend in class. Such countries as West Germany, South Korea, Israel, Thailand, and the Netherlands spend 20 to 60 days longer in school than American students. I know what you're thinking. Suckers, why go to school that long if you don't have to? Face the alternative. Isn't it worth it? And the alternative is this: being considered inferior to Japanese and other Asian children in intellect. We're falling behind, drastically behind. I don't know how you feel, but do not want Japan to become so far superior to us that they will eventually look at us as those poor little, uneducated American kids. It could be that in just a few years we could be unable to acquire high-paying jobs in our own country because we would be unable to compete with people from other countries vying for the same jobs. The problem of our education is not simply that our country as a whole does not measure up to the Asian and European elites. It is that our most competent and able students do not compare to children from other countries. The International Association for the Evaluation of Educational Achievement recently did a study of high school seniors from 12 nations. These students were considered to be advanced in math and science. Americans placed 9th in physics, 11th in chemistry, last in biology, and last in algebra, calculus, and geometry. The accumulating data on comparative education point to two trends. First, compared with their peers in Asian and European countries, American students stand out for how little they work. Second, compared with Asians and Europeans, American students stand out for how poorly they do. What is to be done about this serious deficit in our education? A deficit that is just as serious as the trade deficit and the balance of payments problem. We cannot completely blame our government for causing us to fall behind in our educational process. Perhaps with fewer governmental programs drawn up by people who have never taught in an actual classroom, with spending money more wisely, and with lengthening our school year just a few days, our education system could profit. We could also improve education in the United States by providing more access for students to computers and other technological equipment, by requiring more and better training for teachers and using pay raises as incentives for attending this training, by decreasing class size, by installing more accelerated classes for advanced students, more tutorial programs for students who need them, and by making sure that more money is spent on student needs rather than administrative purposes. Then, and only then, we can improve the education in the U.S. But it all starts with us, the students. The most motivated and hardest working country in the world is quickly becoming the laziest. We cannot afford not to push ourselves to achieve excellence. If we do not, who will? We definitely cannot depend on a country that spends more money annually on criminals and the jail system than on children in school. We can and we will do it. The American spirit and pride will not allow us to lie down and not rise to meet this challenge. We have the intellect and the drive, if we will just use it. We cannot lose sight of what we are, uncomfortable Americans. As Americans, we will succeed. Once we meet this challenge of improving education, the door will be open for solutions to the many other challenges that face our society. Better education, combined with the American ingenuity that we are famous for, will help put the American dream back in motion. Together, we cannot fail. I think John F. Kennedy best summarized my views on why we should be striving to improve our educational system. He said, "Let every nation know, whether they wish us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe, to assure survival and success. This assurance of success is education. Thank you. Before I introduce our first place speaker, I'd like to recognize Mr. Jamie Connors. He is our first ever winner of the Voice of Democracy contest. He not only won first place, he won the district, and he placed fourth in the state. Jamie, would you stand up, please? Our first place winner of the Voice of Democracy contest is Amy Reeves. Amy currently is president of the Beta Club, and in the past year she has participated in this contest twice, winning places each time. She is the daughter of Michael and Denise Johnson of Brownsville.
Good morning, students, faculty, and honored guests. We are assembled here this morning to discuss the challenges that we as Americans face daily and to pay tribute to the men and women who have overcome one of our country's greatest challenges and made their everlasting mark on the world. I feel that the greatest challenge the citizens of the United States have to face in the future and in today's society is to overcome the great attitude of complacency that exists. Complacency being the satisfaction of oneself with an unconcerned attitude and no goal for improvement. The true meaning of a challenge is to confront or to fight boldly or to invite into competition. The citizens of the United States are faced with a choice to overcome or to allow the challenges that they meet daily to overcome them. America has often been referred to as a melting pot of different cultures and races. When a foreigner decides to call America his or her home, he or she will be immediately faced with a difference of opinions. The choice is left up to him or her whether or not to accept the challenge and use his or her rights as an American citizen to make a change, a difference, and improvement. When our country is engaged in war or battle, many of our citizens overcome the fear and the thought that someone else will do the job and serve their time defending the United States. A common attitude is that if I just sit back and keep to myself, the world will keep revolving somehow. The energy that keeps the world revolving, however, is the first step that many people have made to accept the challenge. Martin Luther King Jr.'s inspiration and his belief that dedication and love and peaceful protest could eliminate social injustice was strong enough to allow him to overcome the oppression that he faced continually while he strived to better himself and the living conditions of his people. He knew that the road to improvement would be a rough one, but took the attitude that the trip could only better himself and do good. He was awarded a Nobel Peace Prize in 1964, and this was a great milestone for him and his cause along the road that he traveled. Until 1984, there had never been a woman who chose to run for a presidential office on a major political party. Geraldine Ferraro saw the opportunity to be the first and took it. Her concern for the advancement of both her gender and her political beliefs in her political world were strong, and her attitude was the opposite of complacency. If more individuals would take this attitude, improvements in our world would occur more often. Both King and Ferraro could have chosen different paths on what they did choose. However, both set goals and didn't rest until they were accomplished. Unfortunately, many citizens of the United States have the opinion and the complacent attitude that our nation and government should concentrate solely on the actions that occur within our boundaries. Our involvement in the Gulf War and the results it produced are clear evidence that the actions taken by the President, the generals of our Army, and the soldiers that make up our Army were in the best interest for our country and for world peace. Had these influential leaders, whom we elected to lead us, sat back and shared the attitude of many, the world would have suffered a great blow. A great lesson of right and wrong can be learned from the Gulf War about the importance of continually seeking for ways of improvement. One of our largest voices we have as Americans is to express our desire for improvement in the election of our political leaders who will govern, guide, and represent us. The candidates are most definitely challenged. Their opinions, their beliefs, and their views are often twisted, interrogated, and used against them. It takes an individual who has a great amount of faith in his views to withstand these events and run against an opponent. I feel that as a citizen, I not only have the right, but the responsibility to exercise that right and elect the officials whom I trust. The portrait of an American, in my eyes, is a strong-willed individual who takes pride in his or her country and in his or her beliefs, and sees a challenge not as a barrier, but as an opportunity. Thank you.
I'd like for all the veterans here to stand at this time to be recognized. All the veterans that are present here tonight. Contributed greatly the last few years to our program here, and we certainly miss them. Commander Vanderpool of the 5th District of the VFW has come, and a little bit later on I'm going to call him to make a few remarks. Right now, our main speaker, I want to say a few words. At the present time, Colonel Joe Warren is the chief of all the National Guard recruiters in Kentucky. My first brush with National Guard recruiters was when I was 17 years old, and they're quite effective. They had me all persuaded. But I had to get Mom and Dad to sign up for it so I could get in. And Dad was out of town a few days. I wanted to go ahead and get signed up before he got back. And Mom somehow got it in her head that if we ever had a war with the National Guard, would be the last thing to go, and I didn't tell her any different, so she signed and I went and joined up. Lieutenant Colonel Warren started out by going to OCS out at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Now, I'm familiar with Fort Sill. I went through that school myself. We used to call it the Comanche County College for Confused County College. And we'll let him tell a little bit more about that. He's gone through a lot of other very impressive schools, I see. And he's spent a tour in a part of the world that I'm familiar with somewhat, in Vietnam, back in 71, 72. And he has a list of accomplishments here. I think I'd be here all day if I went through all of them. I don't think I could do them justice, but I had an opportunity to talk to Colonel Warren before we started, and I was very impressed. And without saying any more, I'm going to turn him over to you. Lieutenant Colonel Joe Warren.
Good morning, students, faculty, guests, fellow veterans, and any others that group that I may have left out. Thank you, Colonel Marine, for those kind words. I'd probably be better off going ahead and just sitting down and saying thank you for the invitation after hearing these three students speak. It's quite a compliment, good speakers. With the number of veterans that we have here, with the Kentucky National Guard sending over 1,000 troops to Saudi Arabia, and with the 623 out of Glasgow, and I'm sure there were some people that was in Edmonson County, and maybe even here living in town in Brownsville, that went to 623. I feel that I can safely say that hardly anyone in this audience is untouched by the veterans who held such a spectacular victory in Operation Desert Storm. They can take comfort, and we can take pride in knowing that our affection for them has been multiplied by the thousands. The thousands of yellow ribbons and bows that adorn porches, doorways, and vehicle antennas, the thousands of letters from home addressed to any soldier, and the tens of thousands of voices unified in an unabashed, unrestrained chorus of cheers that echoed in the many welcome home celebrations and homecoming parades. They symbolize our collective triumph. Together, we have preserved. Now, as we reflect on the success of Operation Desert Storm, we understand the contribution and sacrifices made by all. Veterans who have anxiously called to arms in defense of our great nation. What needed to be done, they did, no matter how hard it got. This time last year, General Norman Schwarzkopf received a letter in Saudi Arabia from a young girl in El Paso, Texas. In her letter, 10-year-old Andrea Turnboss said she was writing him because all the troops in his command would get letters, but she was afraid the general would be forgotten. Her message to Storm and Norman: make sure the troops do not give up, no matter how hard things got. Andrew knew firsthand the importance of not giving up. She was a veteran of heart surgery, but she was better now because she had not given up. She told the general she lived in the desert, but it's not so bad. And as we all know, our Desert Storm combat veterans didn't give up. They excelled. These veterans of the whole Army won more than the war. They won back our national confidence. What needed doing, they did, no matter how hard things got. They had your help. Our collective effort epitomized what President Woodrow Wilson envisioned when he created Veterans Day, then called Armistice Day, as a national holiday in 1919. As he helped prepare America for World War I, Wilson said, "It is not an army that we must shape and train for war. It is a nation." Just as back then, our Desert Storm victory was achieved by our nation as a whole, not only by its armed forces. Today marks the second consecutive Veterans Day on which we commemorate veterans who won in war. Last year we hailed the success of Operation Just Cause in Panama, and also the end of the Cold War in Europe. Two unforeseen events with favorable outcomes. The Cold War, a conflict of words and worries, ended spectacularly because we won it without firing a shot. When you consider who should get the credit for the victory, it's natural to look to our community of veterans. Veterans patrolled on moonless, frozen winter nights to protect Germany's Pull the Gap. Veterans lived across the barbed wire and watchtowers that marked West Germany's borders with East Germany and Czechoslovakia. And veterans stared down grim East German guards across the oppressive Berlin Wall. What needed doing, they did, no matter how hard it got. Now their victory is part of history. Those same veterans who ensure our freedom in Europe can rejoice. The serene pool of the Gap is indeed peaceful. The barbed wire and watchtowers along the borders are fallen and rusting, and the Berlin Wall has been reduced to dusty concrete chunks sought after by souvenir hunters. What of the other veterans who served America in less visible but just as important roles as those of the frontline soldiers? They too deserve credit on this Veterans Day. Not all of our soldiers served directly in Operation Desert Storm. They were challenged while their fellow soldiers fought in Southwest Asia to help the war effort any way they could. And they did so brilliantly. Many reservists who answered the call of active duty stayed stateside and replaced others who deployed to the Persian Gulf. Active duty soldiers on other posts across America and other countries maintained their razor-sharp edge and were ready to respond if the call to duty came from some other corner of the world. Some of these veterans kept and are keeping the peace in the Pacific. They know that in the last half-century, a considerable number of Americans have made the ultimate sacrifice in the Pacific region. Their lives underline the importance of maintaining our international relationship in that corner of the globe. While much attention has been focused recently on the Middle East, it is impossible to forget the contributions of those who have served and are serving in the Far East, specifically Korea. This remaining bastion of Cold War confrontation along the 38th parallel poses a daily potent threat for the free world. It takes a special brand of pride to stare down that potential aggression daily. Our soldiers have that special pride. While our military eyes are focused on the northern side of Korea's demilitarized zone, we also have been looking at the southern side of America's border. There, our nation's war on illicit drug trafficking has seized our attention. Our Total Army is helping local and federal law enforcement stem the transport of drugs from land, sea, and air routes. We're committed to helping win our nation's war against this insidious enemy. Speaking of the land, sea, and air, we continue our dedication to being good stewards of the environment. Our commitment to secure our borders echoes our commitment to maintaining a healthy physical nation. Concern for the environment permeates all Army missions, actions, and planning. Some of our veterans, for example, were involved in the oil spill cleanup in Alaska's Prince William Sound 2 years ago. But they've learned, too, that good environmental stewardship is more than cleaning up. The Total Army continues to offer the nation a corps of veteran stewards committed to managing the resources that the American people have entrusted to us. Sometimes, though, nature is unkind. And when nature dealt out a harsh hand, our communities turn to the military for a helping hand. Last year, communities along America's west coast needed the military's help in putting out forest fires. The year before that, the military helped restore order and clean up the nation's eastern seaboard in the aftermath of Hurricane Hugo. And the military helped feed and care for the citizens of San Francisco after an earthquake shattered the city of the Bay. We've gone international in our help. After slamming the door on the aggression of the Iraqi army, many of our veterans opened the door to help the refugees of the brutal Iraqi regime. They provided food and medical care for the Kurdish refugees in northern and southern Iraq. They extended and are still extending a helping hand to the citizens of Kuwait while they continue to rebuild Panama in the aftermath of Operation Just Cause. Veterans returning from combat in Southwest Asia do not complain when they were diverted from their long-awaited trip home to help the people of Bangladesh recover from the lashing of the killer typhoon. What needed doing, they did, no matter how hard it got. This Veterans Day begins the commemoration of a special group of veterans who did what needed doing, no matter how hard it This Veterans Day begins a 5-year celebration of the 50th anniversary of our veterans who served in World War II. Little did these veterans know 50 years ago today that they were on the threshold of one of our nation's most difficult eras. They maintained our nation's readiness through the lean years of the Depression, and then they were tested in a long and bloody war that was dispersed over 2 continents. Their victory half a century ago has enabled us to savor our liberty and freedom today in a way few other nations know. By the way, General Schwarzkopf wrote back to that little girl from El Paso. He appreciated her special understanding of the importance of not giving up, no matter how hard things got. He said the doctors fixed her heart because she had a beautiful heart. He agreed with her that living in the desert was not so bad, and he promised her that our soldiers would not give up, no matter what. On this Veterans Day, we need to remember all the veterans who have served. We need to salute them for their contributions to our nation's defense. We need to appreciate that the ideals they held dear and risked their lives for were reflected in the letter of General Schwarzkopf. We need to thank them for doing what needed to be done, no matter how hard it got. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Warren. I really appreciate Colonel Warren coming down. You know, this is a federal holiday, and this might otherwise have been a day off for Colonel Warren, but he chose to come down here and spend a little time with us today. We really appreciate this man. He's been some of the places I've been, and I just hope he come back and see us again sometime. I have a few things I want to say here. We are here to remember the veterans who have passed on. And we have a couple of people that need to be recognized, and I'd like to say a few words, I'm sure. I'm going to recognize now Mr. Wiley Willis, the commander of the Disabled American Veterans here in Brownsville. He's a past state commander, as I understand, and he's served many years and helped many people here in our community. Come on, Wiley.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's always an honor for me to be here to participate in Veterans Day. First of all, I'm sitting here thinking, it's amazing that we have veterans here from the last 5 wars, representing 75 years from World War I to Desert Storm. They're represented here today. It's amazing. All across America today, a great nation will pause to honor the millions of men and women who have so proudly worn the American uniform of freedom and democracy. In communities of all sizes, there will be patriotic parades, stirring speeches, and somber remembrances for those who participated in what President Bush has called the hard work of freedom. It's entirely fitting on this day that we salute America's citizen soldiers who have so bravely answered their nation's call to arms. That we salute a generation of Minutemen from the American Revolution. That we salute a generation of World War I doughboys. And that we salute a generation of World War II G.I. Joe. Today we will also salute a generation of soldiers who fought back along the 30th parallel of Korea. And a generation of boys who quickly became men in rice paddocks and jungles of Vietnam. On this special Veterans Day, we will also proudly salute our newest generation of veterans. the brave young men and women of Operation Desert Shield and Operation Desert Storm. Wounded Persian Gulf veterans who served as a reminder of how truly great the price of freedom can be, and of how truly wonderful are the Americans who step forward to pay that price. We are forever reminded of the missing in action and the prisoners of war still unaccounted for since World War II. Vietnam, with 2,273 missing and unaccounted for. Korea, with 8,177 missing and unaccounted for. World War II, with 78,750 still missing and unaccounted for. Almost 90,000 all told, still unaccounted for. But even as veterans who are here today accept accolades for the past deeds, those same veterans must wonder if our government will remember their sacrifices once the last bomb has fallen and the final gunshot has been heard. Some people today wonder if our government truly wants to address the pressing needs of our aging veterans of the Battle of the Bulge, or is it prepared to ensure access to higher education for our troops returning from the Persian Gulf? Will our government meet its promise to provide a new prosthetic leg for a fallen warrior of Incheon? Or be there to provide psychological counseling to the GI who did 3 tours of duty in Vietnam? If our government fully intends to honor its commitment to veterans of all generations, why is it that access to quality VA health care has never been more limited? Or the quality of the VA care more in jeopardy? On this Veterans Day, we recall that serious questions have been raised concerning the quality of care available in VA hospitals, and we seek answers to why this nation risks losing faith in one of its most valuable resources, the VA healthcare system. Veterans of all ages are asking, why is it access to beneficial programs of rehabilitation therapy and job training never before been in as much jeopardy? Why is it that our government too often sings out those who have won the battle when it's time to cut the budget? This summer, our newest veterans will be hailed in victory parades around the nation. At the very same time, the federal government was cutting off payments to thousands of mentally incompetent veterans from our previous war. Veterans least likely to fight back and most assuredly unable to do so. Indeed now, we must ask private governments to require thousands more of our nation's oldest and poorest veterans to dig deep into their own pockets to pay for prescription medication that has previously been provided at no charge. Perhaps the feeling of American veterans can be best summed up in the words of one senator who recently told VA Secretary Ed Derwinski, quote, "Tell the President he did a heck of a job with Desert Storm. But Mr. President, we've got to meet our commitment to veterans of other wars. Yellow ribbons and speeches are just not enough," unquote. As a war veteran, I couldn't agree more. Yellow ribbons and speeches are just not enough. Veterans deserve more than patronizing pat on the back, empty promises, and still deeper cuts. Deeper cuts in all of our programs and services. Ask any of us who fought from the Philippine Islands to Japan. Ask any of us who fought from the beaches of France all the way through to Germany and to link up with the Russians, including the Battle of the Bulge in the Ardennes of Belgium. Make no mistake about it. Our nation's sons and daughters who have fought so courageously from Bellawood to Baghdad don't want government handouts. All they've ever asked is our government honoring commitments. Its commitment to quality VA health care to this nation's sickest, oldest, and needest veterans, and its commitment to those whose minds and bodies have been shattered by bombs and bullets. As we salute our veterans on this 11th day of the 11th month, let's remember with pride their commitment to defend the freedom each of us enjoy on this special day. But let us also remember that once the guns of battle fall silent and the sabers no longer rattle, our government has the equally abiding commitment to these same defenders of freedom, a commitment to veterans of all generations that we must not allow to be forgotten. Calvin Coolidge once noted that no nation ever had an army large enough to guarantee it against attack in time of peace or ensure victory in time of war. America's guarantors of victory have been the men and women who put on this nation's uniform in times of peace and war. America's best and most effective resource, its veterans, deserve this nation's continued commitment, loyalty, and support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wiley, and I want to thank the people here at the school officials, and all of you students for being so good to us. You've been real good to us year after year. You've listened quietly and seem to enjoy and appreciate our program. We really appreciate all of you all. Next, I want to call on Commander Vanderpool, 5th District of the Veterans of Foreign Wars. I'm sure he'll have good word for us.
Thank you for inviting me. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. It's one of the best ceremonies I've ever been to. I just want to go along with what the commander here was saying about Lewinsky. I got a letter sometime back from Commander-in-Chief of Veterans of Foreign Wars, Robert E. Wallace, asking me to contact all the veterans and their dependents and asking them to call the President of the United States and send them letters and all this stuff in reference to the bill that Lewinsky's trying to put through on our hospitals. What that is he wants to take indigent people and other people and put them in the VA hospitals in order that they may get their welfare checks or whatever, Medicare or whatever they have. I figured it could take me forever and ever. Lord knows how much money to contact all these veterans and their dependents. So I drafted up a letter. Of course, as you know, everyone I did contact, 99.9 would not call anybody anyhow. So I drafted up a letter to the President, leaving the signature block blank. I'll read you the letter at this time, and then after the ceremony's over with all the veterans or these members were out, will meet me back here. I'll give them a copy of it and ask them to sign this letter. This letter will go to the President of the United States. A copy will go to our congressman. A copy will go to the governor. A copy will go to Lewinsky, the give a pie to people who receive copies of it. My idea is to plug with this sort of stuff, and I made a postage myself. We have the letters to the President, the White House, Washington, D.C. Dear Mr. President, borrowing from a letter written to you by Robert E. Wallace, Commander-in-Chief, Veterans of Foreign Wars, I think it important that I, along with veterans throughout the country, let you know that I am outraged that our Department of Veterans Affairs has initiated a pilot program specifically designed to allow non-veterans access to and treatment in VA medical centers. This response, I believe, both appropriate and predictable since veterans themselves continue to be dropped from VA roles in significant numbers. Secretary Lewinsky has proposed a VA-sponsored rural health care initiative designed to accomplish administratively what the Congress refuses to specifically authorize. Our elected officers of the various veterans organizations have discussed this misguided proposal with VA officials to include the Secretary. Regretfully, their comments and legitimate concerns fall on deaf ears at VA. Thus, my reason for writing directly to you. Mr. President, this DVA proposal is causing a firestorm throughout the veterans community. I cannot believe the White House has endorsed the DVA proposal or that you are even aware of it. Accordingly, I urge you, Mr. President, to act quickly, decisively, directing the DVA to reconsider this untimely initiative and to refrain taking such arbitrary, unilateral, anti-veteran action in the future, respectfully. And I do hope that you all sign this. As many of you know, the veteran himself cannot even get to the hospital. They get turned away from the hospital for lack of space, and they're talking about taking people off the streets and putting them in there. Thank you.
It is now 11 o'clock. Let's stop, stand, and bow our heads for a moment of silence. Thank you. We will now hear from Mr. Moody.
On behalf of the students, faculty, and staff here at Edmonson County High School, I want to say that we are proud to host this assembly each year. As Mr. Stiles has already stated, it's one of the most important assemblies that we have each year. I feel it is our duty that we honor these people living and dead, that has sacrificed so that we may enjoy the freedoms that we have today. I want to extend my appreciations to Mr. Noreen, Mr. Willis, Lieutenant Colonel Warren, and all veterans present today that helped to make this possible. Just this time, Brother Patton.
Would everyone stand with us, please? Our Heavenly Father, we come to you with thankful hearts today for the privilege of living in this great nation. We're thankful, Father, for freedom, for peace. We're thankful, Lord, for all those that's paid the supreme sacrifice, that we may enjoy the things that we have today. We thank you, Lord, for our youth, for our county. We thank you, Lord, for our nation. And we beg you, Father, today that you would help each and every one of us to try to contribute that we can to making our world a better world to live in. We thank you again, Lord, for our nation, for our leaders. And we pray, Lord, you bless our country and help us, Lord, that we might preserve the great freedom and the great privileges that we have. In Christ's name we humbly ask you. Amen.
Students, want to say we appreciate your attention this morning. We'll take about a 5-minute break, then we'll start our lunch period. We'll be running somewhat behind at lunch, so we'll just have to make up for it.